Hey, what up, St. Teresa? My name is Chase Crouse, and welcome to this week's episode of The Ark. All right, so our first reading for this Sunday comes from 1 Kings 17. In those days, Elijah the prophet went to Zarephath. As he arrived at the entrance of the city, a widow was gathering sticks there. He called out to her, "Please bring me a small cupful of water to drink." She left to get it, and he called after her, "Please bring me along a bit of bread." She answered, "As the Lord your God lives, I have nothing baked. There is only a handful of flour in my jar and a little oil in my jug. Just now I was collecting a couple of sticks to go in and prepare something for myself and my son. When we have eaten it, we shall die." Elijah said to her, "Do not be afraid. Go and do as you propose. But first make me a little cake and bring it to me. Then you can prepare something for yourself and your son. For the Lord, the God of Israel says, 'The jar of flour shall not go empty, nor the jug of oil run dry, until the day when the Lord sends rain upon the earth.'" She left and did as Elijah had said. She was able to eat for a year, and he and her son as well. The jar of flour did not go empty, nor the jug of oil run dry, as the Lord has foretold through Elijah. All right, so a little bit of backdrop here. So we have the prophet Elijah in this northern territory of Israel. And in particular, this little town that he's in was actually a Phoenician town ruled by Sidon. You probably heard of Sidon if you read the Old Testament. If you haven't, it's okay, not that big of a deal. But really, the important thing to know is that this is a Gentile nation. This is a Gentile kingdom that was conquered by Israel whenever David and Solomon kind of expanded the kingdom of Israel. But this is still a Gentile town. These are not Israelites that Elijah is going to. This woman is a Gentile. You'll notice that when she says, "As the Lord your God lives," not the Lord our God or my God, as the Lord your God lives. So basically she's saying that I don't worship your God, but I don't have anything to give you, right? And I think one of the things to take away from this passage is the faith of this non-Israelite, right? The prophet Elijah is saying, hey, don't worry, my God is all powerful. My God can do miracles. My God's awesome. Trust in my God. And so this woman trusting in this other God that wasn't hers did as the prophet instructed. And sure enough, she had food for a year for her and a son and Elijah. So this challenges us that if a Gentile can trust in our God this much, how much do we need to grow in our trust of the Lord? Giving out of a place of trust. So with that, let's turn now to our first set of family discussion questions. Alrighty, so our second reading, we're still in the letter to the Hebrews. So this reading comes from Hebrews 9. Christ did not enter into a sanctuary made by hands, a copy of the true one, but heaven itself, that he might now appear before God on our behalf. Not that he might offer himself repeatedly, as the high priest enters each year into the sanctuary with blood that is not his own. If that were so, he would have had to suffer repeatedly from the foundation of the world. But now, once for all, he has appeared at the end of the ages to take away sin by his sacrifice. Just as it is appointed that human beings die once, and after this the judgment, so also Christ, offered once to take away the sins of many, will appear a second time, not to take away sin, but to bring salvation to those who eagerly await him. All right, so this is a super deep theological passage that I really encourage you to dive into and maybe buy a Bible study or a commentary on the letter of Hebrews so you can dive deep into this particular passage. But just, we talked about this a couple of times, but remember that he's referencing, the author of the letter is referencing this atonement, this Day of Atonement, where the high priest would go into the Holy of Holies and make reparations for himself, his family, and the sins of Israel, right? So the author is trying to tell the readers that Christ is the perfect high priest who doesn't have to go in every single year to this mock heaven, right? So remember the temple, the Holy of Holies was like heaven on earth, right? But Jesus doesn't have to do that because he went into actual heaven when he was ascended to the Father after this 40 days after his resurrection, right? So he walked around for 40 days on earth, teaching his disciples more, and then he ascended to the Father. He entered the true Holy of Holies. So his one sacrifice offered for all was an eternal sacrifice. And this is what we enter into at the Mass, right? So we say the sacrifice of the Mass. It's not that Jesus is re-sacrificing himself. It's not that we are re-sacrificing Jesus, but rather in some mystical way, we are being drawn back into the eternal sacrifice once and for all of Jesus offering himself on the cross. This is why the Mass is so important, is we're participating in the once and for all sacrifice of Jesus Christ. That is now an eternal sacrifice given on our behalf. So the Mass is really beautiful. I encourage you to talk about this as a family now as we dive into our next set of family discussion questions. All right, y'all, so the gospel comes from Mark 12. In the course of his teaching, Jesus said to the crowds, "Beware of the scribes who like to go around in long robes and accept greetings in the marketplaces, seats of honor in the synagogues, and places of honor at banquets. They devour the houses of widows and, as a pretext, recite lengthy prayers. They will receive a very severe condemnation." He sat down opposite the treasury, and observing how the crowd put money into the treasury, many rich people put in large sums. A poor widow also came and put in 2 small coins worth a few cents. Calling his disciples to himself, he said to them, "Amen, I say to you, this poor widow put in more than all other contributors to the treasury, for they have all contributed from their surplus wealth, but she from her poverty has contributed all she had, her whole livelihood." All right, so like the widow from our first reading, this widow that Jesus is talking about didn't give from her excess. She gave from her very self. I think so often when it comes to giving money to charity or giving money to the church or helping others or even spending time with others, we really try to only give kind of the extra stuff, right? We don't give until it hurts. But Jesus is saying that this woman is blessed because she gave even when it hurt, right? She gave even when it cut deep. And this can be money. It can also be time. It can be emotional. Sometimes we must give even when it hurts. And in fact, this is kind of the drive, right? That man finds himself through a sincere gift of self. So if you feel like you're still searching for the meaning of all this, for why anything's happening in your life, ask yourself, have you given until it hurts? Have you found yourself through a sincere gift of self, as we read about in Gaudium et Spes? One thing that I think some people take away from the first reading in this gospel is this sense of the prosperity gospel, right? So if you haven't heard of the prosperity gospel, televangelists talk about it all the time, like Joel Osteen and all these yahoos. Anyway, they talk about this prosperity gospel that, if you just give, if you donate to God, if you give him stuff, he's going to give you so much stuff, you're going to be prosperous in this life. The prosperity gospel is a heresy, fun fact. Jesus doesn't promise you wealth in this life. He promises you a cross, actually. That's basically one of the few promises Jesus makes. He promises you the cross. He says, you're going to pick up your cross daily and follow me. So what this isn't teaching us is to give, and then all of a sudden Jesus is going to pay us back and then some, right, with interest. No, that's not what it's saying. It's Jesus is inviting us to give until it hurts, so that way we may better imitate him and his gift and his eternal gift on the cross. So with that, let's dive into our last set of family discussion questions. All right, St. Teresa's, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of The Ark. We'll see you next time. God bless.